So today we have Mitch in the house. He's part of the Perma Resilience community, so some of you have talked to him there. I'll put a link down to our community down there. So Mitch today is going to give us a rundown on how to map your property. There's all this data available already out there, and Mitch is a fantastic homesteader permaculture guy. And on top of that, he's a computer scientist / programmer. So he's come up with some pretty cool systems. He's actually helped me map my entire property, and with Lidar data that's already available. And using his program, you get access to everything from water contours. I'm probably butchering half of it, so I'm going to let him explain how amazing this is. And, you know, the two good things about this is if you have your homestead, it's like, how do you get the gradients, everything without having to pay a lot of money for a professional? And if you are a professional, it saves you a ton of money on the mapping side of things. So without further ado, Mitch, take it.
Howdy, everybody. Thank you, Stefano. Yeah, my name's Mitch, and I'm super pumped to be here. What I'm going to do today is I'm just going to go quickly over my background, how I got to where I am, and then I'm going to ask for a volunteer, essentially. And as a prerequisite for being that volunteer is that you're not too bothered by providing an address, and then I can get some Lidar data, and we can go through how to actually get contours from that Lidar data, import it into Google Earth Pro. And then the latter half, I suppose, we will go over the software that I've developed to map property scale and get professional grade GIS insights that you can use for property assessments or permaculture designs and whatnot. If you are interested in that right away, there's Stefano just put up the link for that in the chat. So without further ado, I'm going to try to see what it's like to share my screen on StreamYard, which is something I have not done before. So what I'm going to do is actually, I think I might have to open this screen, so I have a little bit more wiggle room. Bear with me while I get this tech set up. Okay, I think this should do the trick. Okay, where are you? Presentation. Sorry, folks. Just need to get this sorted. This is taking up every screen that I have, so it's a bit annoying. All right, you know what? We're just going to wing it. And how do I get out of here? I think I just
hey, guys. While we're waiting for Mitch to get set up, I just shared the Perma Resilience school community, and that's the link for it. So a lot of people are from my YouTube channel that aren't part of the community. So what we do there is we teach you homesteading, permaculture, anything that revolves around resilience is there. So how to map your property, how to buy a property, how to do pretty much any type of gardening. And then we have almost 500 members right now in our community. So there's a link there. And yeah, we'll get here going with Mitch.
Yeah, I think I got it sussed. So I suppose if there's any questions, I'll just need to be flagged because I'm not going to be able to see the StreamYard window here. I believe I've just started sharing here. Can you see what I see, which is Mitch's Permaculture Journey Perma Resilience presentation? I'm going to assume that that's a yes, and I'm going to go ahead and start talking. So, yo, what up, everybody? My name's Mitch, and my background is pretty eclectic. So I've been just kind of referring to myself as a regeneralist, which in my mind is a regenerative generalist. So I'm a farmer, I'm an earth system scientist, I'm a geospatial data analyst, I'm a software developer, and I'm more. So I'll start with that. And in my undergrad, what I did was Earth System Science, which is basically all of these things, but they weren't so much talking to one another. It was very siloed in the sense that, like, say geomorphology wasn't really talking to biogeography, and sustainability wasn't talking to hydrology in that sense. It was very siloed, and pretty much what I could sum up my undergrad experience is like, here's a bunch of problems in the world, and here's a degree. Go have fun trying to solve those. And what I was really actually passionate and interested in was sustainability and food and farming. And then in my master's, what I ended up doing was meteorological data science or applied meteorology. And what I did there was did a proof of concept for an AI algorithm that can predict frost in complex terrains for vineyards. So I was getting a little bit closer to the food and farming and combining things I was really passionate about, climatology and food and farming. And I do like the odd glass of wine every once in a while. So that was really cool to apply that, but it really still wasn't, I suppose, satisfying me in the sense like there's all these problems in the world, and I'm not doing much to help with that. And so in my mind, here's what I left university. It was like, here are the problems of the world that I'm now aware of with a degree or 2 degrees in Earth System Science, basically. So there's all these problems, and the solutions being presented in conventional education were kind of like this. It was like, and that's a real life gif of me holding my degree after university, wondering what in the actual hell I'm going to do with my life. And then to take my work and volunteer experience, as I was saying, very eclectic background. So these are all jobs that I've had. Campground attendant, I used to ferment food at a food truck, as research assistant, farming, stable hand, garbage man, all sorts of crazy stuff. Just did what I could to make some money here and there. And these were my interests and skills and hobbies, which again, super eclectic, all over the show. So like, how do I combine these into something that I really love and enjoy, and for me, provide solutions to the world, or even just be a part of that solution framework? And that's kind of what I started getting into permaculture, which I don't really need to explain to you guys. But I really loved the idea that I could be using what I've learned to help in creating agriculturally productive systems. And I love the philosophy behind it, working with instead of against nature, and taking time to observe and just really be out there and being a part of nature. So what this reframed for me was really combining everything that I had learned about and moving beyond sustainability and actually to regeneration. And so I'm living this in my day-to-day life, or doing my best to. So my partner and I, we are stewarding 23.5 acres in central Alberta. Our homestead is called Moose's Groovy Grove, named after our dog Moose. And we have, at the bottom left, you can see the big old garden we have, livestock shelter, spiral orchard. There's another couple of systems we have in play, but I'll show some pictures of those as we go along. So we're growing tons of different food. We've got a mushroom garden. You can see on the right hand side there. That's a time lapse I took of some oyster mushrooms growing on the north side of our house, where it's nice and cool and shady. So I'm super into microclimates and matching microclimates that the built environment creates, and then matching what wants to grow there to be there. Our first year, we didn't have that greenhouse that you see in the middle picture, but we were still growing tons and tons of tomatoes, like on the left-hand side, on the southwest side of our house, just because that's naturally where heat is accumulating. So we turned that into a little micro greenhouse. And I will add that we do live in a really challenging environment. So we're in central Alberta in Canada. And just to give you an idea of some of the climate issues we're dealing with, or weather issues, this past year, like last year, we had a frost in June 16th. And then our first frost was early September. So there are times when we have a very, very short growing season. And so it's really intense our summers are super, super intense to do what we're doing. And we're growing all our own food. We go to the grocery store maybe for oil and salt. And then we're lucky enough to be in a community where we can get meat from our neighbors and take part in that growing and harvesting process. So here are just some snippets from our garden. We have a chicken tractor that we run to the understory of our spiral orchard. We have a dairy cow. You can see her in the background on that nice foggy morning. And we're growing lots of food. And here are some drone videos of some of the systems that we have just going on. That video on the right there, that's a rainwater harvesting system that overflows into a pond, and that overflows into a couple of swales, finally to another pond. I'll play that video again, just so you can get a little bit more context to what's going on there. And then there's apples, pears, plums, cherries, Siberian peach, all in between there. So that's very much a work in progress. So hopefully we'll be finishing that up this year. And then that video on the left, that's just a little bit more on what we call the perennial patch and the main garden. So where I kind of came from is once I start to understand what the scale of permanence was and how important that is in property design and homesteading and creating a yield, I found myself in a very lucky situation where I had just spent the last 10 years learning about climate, topography, and water. So there's another real life gift of me being like, all right, cool. Like I have a pretty good handle on those three things. I'll note that we had no food growing experience whatsoever before moving out to this property. So it was just day by day learning how to get rid of grass and then growing tons of food out of it. And so having that familiarity with these things and data really allowed me to get really comfortable with the questions. Why I knew what the questions were, but I was figuring out ways to answer them in ways that made sense to me and hopefully made sense to others. So one thing that I had worked on, I was the lead developer of this product at a company, was a climatic analysis. Which I won't get too far into today, just because I can't really, I don't work there anymore. So, but that was a cool tool that I worked on. And now what I'm working on is my own property analysis software. So, and I'm going to go over how to make your own contour map first before we get too into this. But while we're running our own kind of lesson on how to get your own contour map for free, I'll be running that software in the background, and then we can go over the output of that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen there. And then, is there anybody in the chat who'd be interested in getting a contour map of their property? And if no one comes up, that's a-okay. I will just go do it on a random property somewhere that I find in the US. Anybody? Okay, Indica Doggo. Love the name. Let's I'm going to assume that you're all good with that. So Indica Doggo. Let's if you're open to it, I'll just need your address. And then I can go to see if there is any LiDAR data available for your place. And then we can use that as an example. Okay, awesome. If you could please just give that in the chat, or if you are part of the school community, if you're more comfortable, then you can just send that to me in a message. Okay, there we go. Fantastic. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to Google Earth Pro. I'm going to close this down. Share that screen. And so we are going to go through this, and anyone can follow along here to get their own LiDAR data. And I'm so jealous, like being from Canada, we don't really have the same resources here. So here I am in Google Earth Pro. Google Earth Pro is free. It's easy to use. It doesn't make you want to scream like QGIS does, and it's not expensive like ArcGIS is. And so for the intents and purposes of just doing really quick property assessments and even some design work, this is an amazing free tool that you can leverage. So what I'll do, I actually need to join the chat here. Let's hope this doesn't close down that. So I can make sure that I can provide comments here. Okay, I can do that. Fantastic. So if you don't have Google Earth Pro, you can go to this link that I'm about to put in here. And you just go down to the bottom. Oh, this comment failed to post to Stefano Creatini. Stefano, where should I put this comment? Oh, you're muted.
Which comment?
I'll try to comment in StreamYard, but it doesn't seem.
If you just go on the right section and hit comments, you're probably on private chat. Just go up and hit comments.
Oh, I did that, but now it just says this comment has failed to post to Stefano Creatini.
Oh, okay. If you put in private chat, I'll share it.
Okay, sweet, awesome. That's a great solution. Okay, so at that link, if you don't have Google Earth Pro, you just go to the bottom of that page and click the button Download Earth Pro on desktop. And I suppose we'll go here, and I'll actually share my screen on that so people know what they're looking for. Okay, perfect. So at the bottom of this, you just go Download Earth Pro on desktop. And then I suppose the second part of this actually is going to be, you are going to need QGIS. So if you just get QGIS, it's also free, but it's not as easy to use, and it might make you a little bit scared when you open it for the first time if you haven't before. So you simply need to go to download on that and follow the install wizard. So it's just qgis.org for that one. And then by the time we get to that stage, all those things should be downloaded if you're following along. Or if you're just watching this later, then you can pause the video while those things download and then follow along a bit later. Okay, so now we're going to go back to Google Earth Pro, and we're going to go to we're going to go to Indicadoggo's address, and I'm going to have to rely on Indicadoggo to be attentive here. So you should be able to see that here now. So we're going to go to Indicadoggo's house or property. Okay, Indicadoggo, is this looking like this is your neck of the woods here? going to assume that that's going to be a yes. So it looks like it's a smaller plot here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to map from these roads because that's hard to see. Can you zoom in more? Right about here. Let's cancel that. How's that into Kadago? I just love saying that.
If we can't figure it out, Tara also put in another property.
Yeah, that is Nova Scotia has good Lidar. So I'll go.
That just said we have access to the entire block from A to B Street.
Okay, sweet. So what I'll do is I'm just going to map out this whole area right here. So we have a large enough area. So when you're Google Earth Pro, you can't actually see that. That's annoying. So I'm going to have to change the screen share type. Entire screen. There we go. Okay. Now you should be able to see everything that pops up on my screen. Okay, so up top here, there are some buttons. One of them being is a polygon button. So what you can do with this is delineate certain areas. So I'm going to delineate up to here to the road and back here. So that whole block right there, I'm just going to name that Indicadoggo. Go okay. I'm going to save that. Let's go. Save that right there. Okay, so now we have that area saved on the computer. And what we're going to do now is go to the USGS website for Lidar. I will plug that into the private chat so that Stefano or Mariana can share that in there. Yeah, got it. And then I'm going to go get that address again. 308. Perfect. Okay, so up top here, you can search by type of Lidar project name, or if you click on this arrow, sometimes, oh God, it's annoying when that happens. God. That is so annoying. Let's make that a bit bigger. There we go. Address, put that in there, and this will take us right to our area of interest. So this will look familiar. We were just basically here in Google Earth Pro. And on the left-hand side here, you want to click on DEM, and that stands for Digital Elevation Model. So we're going to see, yep, there is data available here. You can tell us that whole area just turned brown. And on my computer, you just go press the command button, and then you can click and drag and choose that area. And on the right-hand side here, there will be digital elevation models in that area. So click on that, and we have 1 meter resolution LiDAR here. And so we're going to go ahead and try to find the one that was taken latest. So that would be 2018. Download that. And I'm going to save that in the same folder. Where are you? Indicadoggo, right there. Perfect. So that's going to take a little bit of time to download. It's quite a bit of data. So why this is important and why I like using LiDAR instead is because it is really high resolution. So 1 meter, about 3 feet. That means that the grid cells that make up those elevation squares essentially are really small and very accurate. the other great thing about LiDAR is it can penetrate through tree canopies. And so it's actually representing the ground surface. And so if you are somewhere else in the world, I mean, even in Canada, Tara, there is LiDAR available in some places. It's not as easy to get as from the USGS, but it is possible. It's just a little bit trickier to get to. But even in some places in Ontario, they have 50 centimeter resolution LiDAR, which is amazing to deal with because the level of detail is just so incredible. Anyways, LiDAR is awesome. And then when you get there is other data available that is global, but it has much less desirable resolution. So it's like some places in the States, it's 10 meters, which is about 30 feet. So maybe that's suitable for a really, really, really large area. And then the next up would be 30 meters or 90 feet. So when you're at a smaller acreage scale, it's basically useless. So I would recommend that if anyone is at 5 meters, I mean, not 5 meters, 5 acres or more, then you basically need LiDAR if you want to have those really good holistic GIS insights. And then smaller than 5 acres, a lot of the time it's like, well, you could see the lay of the land and tie things together a little bit more holistically. That's not to say a map wouldn't be useful. Definitely can be. But in general, I'd say like 5+ acres, you should be striving to get a LiDAR derived map. And what is cool is I've done a couple of projects where I even did a 2,000 hectare map through my software. That is, I don't know how many acres. It's a lot with LiDAR data. So that's about 5,000 acres. And like just like the way it ties together the whole landscape and how you can see everything is just absolutely incredible. Anyways, okay, that's done downloading in 7 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and get QGIS teed up. I'm going to get that folder open. Okay, have that. Let's get QGIS open. Yes, Christina, this will be on YouTube. Yep. Okay, so we've got QGIS open. Right when it opens, you'd be like, oh, geez. If it is your first time opening up QGIS, it's can be a little bit like, oh. And don't be too worried if you have a different QGIS version than what you're seeing here. It's all good. We're going to go to new project there, and I'm just going to drag that in there. That's pretty simple. And here's that cool LiDAR data. You can see all it's all in grayscale, but that's those are the 1 meter resolution grid cells being represented in a grayscale image. So I'm going to chuck that in there too. So now we have that boundary represented. Zoom to that. So it is dark, but it is right in there. It just happens to be where it's really dark. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go up to raster up here. We're going to go to extraction, clip raster by mask layer. And so what we're essentially doing is what we took from Google Earth Pro is the cookie cutter, and we're applying that cookie cutter to this gridded data set. So the input layer is going to be that USGS file. The mask layer is going to be Indica Doggo. This is actually a really important step, is assign a specific no data value to output bands. Make that, just click up on there. It'll be -9999999. And so that basically just ensures that what you're trimming out of there is just exactly what you want to cut out there. So we'll do that. And now you'll see that has cut that area out, and there's a new file up here called clipped in brackets mask. So what we're going to do, I'm going to export that, and I'm going to save that as DEM. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I need to go, where is that? Right here. So I am just going to run my software on what we just did there. And that'll run while we do the other demonstration. So give me 1 second here. Okay. So that's running in the background now. Cool. Now, where is StreamYard? There we go. All right. So, okay, we're done with that. Cool. Now we have another one called DEM up here. So again, that just means digital elevation model. And we can turn that off, turn that off, turn that off. So that is what we have. And now what we want to do is go raster extraction contour. And it looked to be fairly flat there. So I'm going to change this from 10, which is right now 10 meters, which is about 30 feet, which obviously is going to be a lot. Those contour lines are going to be super far apart. So let's go 0.5 and go run. Okay. So now we have contours there. Let me turn that off at half a meter. So that's about 1.5 feet intervals right there. And so I'm going to go here and export that as, can I save that as a KML? I'm not actually too sure. Yes, I can. KML right there. Save that in the right folder in Doggo contours. 0.5, that just represents the half a meter. I'm going to save that there. Cool. I'm just going to add another layer there. And now when I go to here, I can go here and go. There we go. Now we have contours in Google Earth Pro. So here's a really high resolution contour map right there. So free way to get a very good contour map for your property. Now I just need to check something right here. I spelled something wrong there. And so, oh, that's because I spelled, it's Ithaca Doggo there. Sorry, give me 1 sec here. This is a small file, so this should not take too long to run. So I'm just going to take a look to see what these questions are. Okay, so Tara, so here's my program running and creating all of these different layers. I'll keep that just in the background there. Okay, so if you have 5+ acres, can you post that? I have a hearing loss and miss specific things. There's no closed caption for this video. So yeah, I was just saying, if you do have 5+ acres and you are trying to source some Lidar, and I know you're in Canada, so if you just look up Canada Lidar, it's a bit of a process to get in there. Just fair warning, the Canadian platform absolutely sucks, and I apologize for that. And so when you do find some data, if you get to that point, there's a very important difference between DEM and DSM. And for anyone else out there too, if you are looking for LiDAR data, you'll find that some places are switch DTM and DEM. So digital elevation model, that's just the ground. So it takes out the buildings, it takes out the trees, it takes out all the vegetation, and it's just the ground, which is really important, obviously, for water flows, because you don't want a contour map of the tree canopy. But if you were to download a DSM, which stands for Digital Surface Model, you're going to get the buildings, you're going to get the tree canopies and all of that. So just keep that in mind if you are going to go search for your own LiDAR data. So you want either the DEM or DTM. The T in DTM stands for terrain. So it's the ground. And then let me see, is my software done running? Almost. Unless it's frozen, which it might be. Nope, she's done. Okay, so where's that folder? Where is it going? So we have all of these folders here. I'm just going to click on that. And so what my program does is it automates all of the layers that I would want to have while assessing a property. So it's going to turn all of these layers off, and then we can go from there. And I'll get another example up too. So we'll close that down. Okay, cool. So let's get that nice and front center. The first part of landscape is elevation. And right off the bat, there is, you can see where the maximum elevation is, where the minimum elevation is. And there's some more statistics on there. I'm just going to get the windows open right here. And so in this case, what this is saying, based on the standard deviation or the variation in topography there, that this terrain is pretty flat or gently sloping, which we could see. And actually, Google Earth Pro is awesome in the sense that it already has a lot of that 3D functionality in there. So you can see the surrounding mountaintops there. And if you are trying to follow along in Google Earth Pro, you just need to make sure that on the left-hand side right here, this terrain is, so it's actually right above my videos right now. So you can turn that on and off, and that basically turns the 3D off and on. And so we have maximum and minimum elevation here. Obviously, it's pretty flat based on that. Hillshade is the next one, which shows a 3D representation of the ground surface right here. So you can start to see where these, is that a road or a canal? Not too sure. Oh, that's a road. And all these other features in there, whether that's the yards or whatnot. You have the tinted hillshade, which is the same as the previous one, but it just has that elevation color gradient on top of that. So you can see a little bit more, relatively speaking, where the high spots are, where the low spots are. Obviously low over here, higher up here. Next up is contours at different intervals. So instead of just running that through in QGIS independently, my software just takes care of all of it. So we have 0.5 meter. So that's about 1.5 feet. I do need to make this more imperial friendly. So that's something that's on my to-do list. 1 meter or 3 feet, 2 meters, about 6 feet intervals, and then 3 meters. So that's about 9 foot intervals. So for that, we could tell, just by the way the contours shape, that we're sloping from here down to here. And for anyone who's actually unfamiliar with what a contour is, apologies for not going over that earlier, but it's basically just a line of equal elevation. And I'm going to show another demonstration of the outputs of Landscope somewhere else, where that'll be a little bit easier to wrap your head around because of the really diverse topography in that area. So we have slope. So slope, we have degrees and percentages, and a little bit of a classification there. And what I really love about this layer that I've baked into here is that there is a percentage breakdown of how much of that land area is actually in each of those slope classifications with some design considerations. So in this case, in Cadalgo, you're in a really flat area. So you've got level terrain that's suitable for most land uses. And I mean, you could write a whole book on design considerations for slope, but I just wanted to provide just some Coles notes for folks, right? Quick at a glance, like, okay, what can I do here? What can't I do here? Sort of deal. And so, yeah, with lots of green here, so it's pretty flat. We go to slope classifications. Now we can actually toggle on those certain areas. So if we wanted to focus on just those flat areas, here you go. Now in this instance, there's not too many steep areas, so it's there's not much is popping up when I do that. All right. Okay, aspect is one of my more favorite ones because this is your microclimates, which way those slopes are actually facing. And because this is an urban area and it is really flat, it's a little bit harder to read those aspect layers because when a surface is flat, it's not really facing a particular direction. But I could tell just by looking at here, it's likely that we've got a little bit, I mean, and based on the slope direction from those contours, this is predominantly north facing. But let's let the numbers talk here. So we have a percentage breakdown of how much of that land area is actually facing a particular direction. So yeah, 21%, 22% of this area of interest is facing northeast. So a little bit cooler. I also like that's not always a bad thing. A lot of people are like, oh, I want like the super sunny slopes, south facing slopes in the northern hemisphere. But if you've read any of Mark Shepard's work, then it's like it's very clear that you want an eclectic array of different microclimates, because in those microclimates you find different levels of resilience. Because if you were just planting on south-facing slopes and you had an unseasonably warm spring, those trees, for example, would bud earlier. And if you have a late frost, you're screwed. But if you're planting also on north-facing slopes, then you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. And so because those north-facing slopes are a cooler microclimate, then it's, say, same scenario, it's a fairly warm early spring. Those trees on those north-facing slopes, because it's cooler, they might not actually bud. And then if there is a later spring frost, they're all good. Like those buds, they'll survive, right? So just some considerations for that layer. The south-facing slopes aren't always the absolute end-all, be-all. And then spread the love. Put trees everywhere is what I'm trying to get us, I suppose. And then you can really just highlight those certain areas. So here are just the northwest slopes, north and northeast. And then if you want to focus on just the warmer microclimates, there you go. So not too much for south-facing slopes here. Next up is where I get pretty excited, and that's the topographic wetness index and other hydrology features. So as the name suggests, topographic wetness index is basically where the topography is going to be the most wet. And this is calculated by using the slope around those certain areas. So these dark patches right here, that is where water naturally wants to accumulate. Yeah, it is a bit overwhelming. This is so much information into Cadalgo. And it definitely takes like a lot of, it's a bit of information overwhelm for sure. But it's super helpful. It's like, okay, here's this wet spot. That's basically a glaring picture of where to not build a house. Like don't build a house there. In fact, what you probably want to do is this is where a pond naturally wants to be. So just dig it a little bit deeper, right? Like that's one of the main core things that Bill Mollison was promoting was don't do unnecessary work. And so if this pond already wants to be there, then put it right there. Like this is showing you exactly where it wants to go. Same as here. And there's a couple other dark patches all through in here as well, where might not want to be building a house. And because this layer kind of takes up that whole field of view, I mean, you do have the option. Another thing I love about Google Earth Pro is you can change the opacity. So you can go like that and see, relatively speaking, what's going on underneath. But I also wanted a way where you could just see everything really easily. So the 95th percentile of that topographic wetness index. So you can just see where the top 5% of those values are. So here's that really wet spot where the pond wants to be, and some other areas as well. So where there's some blue, if there's a really heavy rainfall event, that's where you could likely expect there to be some level of flooding, especially if it's so intense that the ground is saturated and it can't infiltrate down. This is naturally where it's going to want to go. And we can assume that with a little bit more trust because of the high resolution LiDAR data, right? So yeah, that's right, Christina. With this tool, you just skip the entire process. And I mean, you could do a lot of this analysis in QGIS. It just takes a long time. Whereas with my tool, I've programmed it all. So all I need is the digital elevation model, and all of these layers come out in a matter of seconds to minutes, depending on how big that area is. So you have the 95th percentile, 92.5, and 90th percentile. So the top 10% of those, that topographic wetness index. And next up is flow accumulation. So where this is a little bit darker, that's where, as the name suggests, where water is going to be actually accumulating more, especially during those heavy rainfall events. And so in these areas, you could expect there to be more erosion and more force behind that water, simply just because there's actually more water feeding into that, that stream, right? And similar to before, that takes up the whole thing. So what I wanted to do is have a version of that where you could actually take a look at what was happening relative to those surroundings, right? So this is a less sophisticated flow accumulation algorithm, but it's still, again, because we're using LiDAR data, it's a lot more trustworthy, so to say. And so we have micro drainage features, minor drainage channels, intermediate drainage channels, and major drainage channels there. And this last layer, because it's really flat here, it's not going to be too useful. It's more useful for sort of like areas where there's a little bit more topographic variation. And so I'm going to actually go to another area that I just mapped yesterday.
Hey, Mitch, do you have my property still on your records?
Yeah, I do.
Let's do it, because I can answer any questions too.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. That's a really good idea. Where are you, Stefano? There you are. Okay, we're flying to Stefano's now.
Makes it look so easy.
Well, that's what I love about Google Earth Pro too. It's just so, I gotta turn all these off, change some things around, legend placements and whatnot. Okay, cool. So we'll go through each of those layers at Stefano's pace. All right, you want to guide this tour, Stefano, and I'll just click the buttons?
Yeah, so that's my house. Well,
it was your house. Let's turn it. Yeah, this is the bigger one.
And so that's my house. I'm actually in one of those buildings right now. And Can you zoom in a little bit more?
Yeah, you bet, man.
Yeah, so that's exactly it. North facing, that's the garden I built. And then to the south, that's where all my springs start coming in. You can just see that's all pure wetlands. So my goal is to move the spring water around that I have. And to the north a little, if you can scroll up a little bit, you can kind of see that there's no water and it's turning into a desert to the north, even though I have plenty of water to irrigate all this and turn it back into grassland / permaculture silvopasture. So that's my property in a nutshell. It's 36 acres.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, let's go through the outputs, see how they match up. So elevation, and this layer is like, it's cool. I think the most useful bit of it is right here. So it's showing, again, a very flat or gently sloping area. But let's just jump to those water layers. So this is the bigger one. And it is kind of handy to have a bigger one too, just because it allows you to see where the water is both coming in to your property and where it's leaving from, which is why this map in particular is bigger than Stefano's actual property.
Right. The one I have, Mitch, is just around my property. So it's just limited. Yeah.
Huh. Wonder if I have that. I have. Okay, yep. There we go.
Yeah, that's exactly the one I have. That's my entire property.
Yeah. Cool. There you go.
And I do have a video of my property on my YouTube where people can actually see what it looks like.
Yeah. So it is really interesting when you put in different areas into here, and I'm starting to learn to identify like these different opportunities that come in different areas. So like with this sheet flow, because there's so much like there's not any thing to slow that water down. It's just sheet flow going down into these streams right here. So when I look at that, it's like, okay, that could be either swales or ponds or terraces based on what the contours want to do. And then obviously like where there's this down here, it's like, okay, that's going to be a pond. And then when there's more established streams in there, that's great for check dams, one rock dams to slow the water down.
And I have a couple springs. One is going down constantly through that. So my goal is to make ponds off of that.
Yeah.
And just cascading ponds working down.
Dude, hell yeah.
And then the other section down below, heading south, that ravine also has year-round water.
Yeah, cool. And yes, Christina, it is totally possible. So it's you just right-click on there, and you can change the opacity. And once you get it right, you can see a little, like, obviously this is that darker bit right there. It's not shining out too well, but there's already like a depression there, right? So you can kind of start to see how that matches up there. The other thing that I didn't really chat about in New Mexico is that you can add, like you could layer these together. Right? So we can have that there, put the contours on, or if you don't want that there, you could slap that on there and then change the opacity from that so you can see a little bit more of the elevation down there. So how I like to approach these mapping things is like, what kind of question am I wanting to ask? So say like, am I looking for warm microclimates? Am I looking for a place to plant an orchard? and then doing kind of a needs and yields analysis, and like, okay, what does an orchard need? Or what do chickens need? Chickens need, at least in my neck of the woods, it's going to be different for everyone. But where I am, where it gets down to -40, at least a couple times every year. I'm not too sure what this is in Fahrenheit, but we just got out of a cold snap, and it didn't get warmer than -21 Celsius. So that's about -6 Fahrenheit for about 3 weeks. And so for me, I want to know where those south-facing slopes are. So that's where I'm going to put my chicken coop. So I can build a chicken coop with passive solar gain in there, windows on the south, and have that sunlight shining right to the back of that chicken coop so that it's warmer in there. And then there's just like deep bedding in there with decomposition warming it up on top of the body heat from the chickens. So that's actually a project that we finished up before this winter. So I think that's, like Tara was saying, that this is a cool tool, but needs someone IT savvy. And I'll be the first to agree that like this is a lot of information, and it does take a little bit of work and time to get used to this. But once you master it, it's like you can unlock the potential of any property, right? So I suppose with that, maybe what I'll do is I'll just show the aspect layers at a really topographically diverse area, and then take some questions. So we're going to go on a field trip to New Zealand.
What do you have against my property, Mitch?
It's so flat.
There's 100-foot difference in those 36 acres.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I just want to show the aspect here, and then actually, who is it? There any fans of Jeff Lawton in here? I'm sure there's at least two.
I'm sure pretty much at least half know of Jeff.
Okay, cool. Oh, it doesn't want to. Is it just loading? No, that's why we didn't go all the way there. So we get aspect in an area that's a little bit more mountainous. You really see those things shine through a little bit more. You'll notice that because we're in the southern hemisphere now, it's those north-facing slopes that are the warmer ones. So that's really what I wanted to show there. And then actually, we'll just do a quick tour of Zaytuna Farm, just the water features here, because this is super, super cool. And I think like this is, I think for a lot of people, I want like this to be my first YouTube video that I actually go through, is doing a tour of Zaytuna Farm's water systems, because everybody loves Jeff Lawton's water systems. It's like, how do these things actually work together? And with the data, you can actually see how these things work together. And so we have, if we put on the contour map here, you can see here's a pond right here that is in a swale that leads to another pond right here, that on that same contour goes to another pond right there. And these little branches right here, those are actually the spillways. And so when that swale fills up, it's got to go somewhere. And ideally, it would be channeled to either another swale and pond system, like it's happening right here. So when this swale fills up, it cascades down into here, where there's another swale and pond system. Same as here, we have that spillway going into this pond, and this one going down this valley into some more decentralized water retention systems. And there's some more pond and swale action going on over here. Right here, that's more swales, And I think it's just like so fascinating to see this from a data perspective, like how these systems are actually set up. Because me personally, that's how I learn. Pretty visual learner. So it's like, okay, how are these systems set up by the experts? And how can I replicate that in a way that's appropriate for my context? And I think unless there's more questions about this particular area, Lioness Living has a question about what about smaller properties in the suburbs? I'm working on designing food forest gardens and backyards. Would this be helpful or not small enough scale? You know, I think it kind of depends on the size of the lot and the topographic context that you find yourself in. I think like if it's pretty big, then it would be useful. And I think it's always useful to have information on how water is entering a property, regardless of size, and how it's leaving, which this can do. So it's just a matter of mapping out the appropriate area around it, rather than just that smaller area. So it's still quite useful, I think, in that regard. And I think let's just maybe frame it for some more questions, I suppose, if there are any. Stefano, you have any questions, or if anybody else has any questions, then
this data is so powerful that it's hard to really understand, like when you're first beginning. But if you were to hire a permaculture designer to give you this data, and they were to walk out there, or you hire a surveyor with an ATV, depending, or now a drone to map your data, I mean, you could easily drop $3,000 to $6,000 like this, just for simple data, and it wouldn't even be as comprehensive, because what you've put into a program, I feel like I'm your salesperson now, but we're putting it like to get that aspect of where like the solar exposure, and then where the water is most likely, like when you mapped it on my property, it's like 100% what is going on. And you don't even have to walk my property now. You could just tell like, hey, this is where we should put swales. Like this is exactly where I wanted to put swales. But now it's like, I have the data to reconfirm like, hey, I'm making the right decision. And when you're renting an excavator that's like $2,000 to $3,000 a week, you can't make mistakes, unless obviously you have deep pockets, and then it doesn't matter. But not my case. So it's the amount of data. I'm curious, what does your program look like? And as far as like, what is like a tip, how does working with you work?
Yeah. So right now, how it works is it's just like one-off. So what I'm working on building is an actual automated platform. So anyone could go delineate an area they want mapped, and they could get that map in hours, if not minutes. But at the moment, it's like email exchange back and forth. Pricing is dependent on the size of the property, obviously, because like it's not fair if someone's mapping out 500 acres relative to like 10 acres, right? And what I am doing right now is just setting up a waiting list of people who are interested in this mapping stuff. But if you're keen on getting a map, then it's just emailing me, and we can go back and forth on what works for you. And then I can provide a quote based on the size of the area to be mapped. But what I will say is like, it's so much cheaper than hiring a surveyor and getting that data. So like, even just getting that raw data file, if you were to go out there, hire someone to do that for you, that's already in the thousands of dollars. I'll just tell you right now, this is not going to be in the thousands of dollars for this output. Like that's why I built it this way, is to make it more accessible and democratize this sort of information, to get it into the hands of people who want to do good work, right? Let's just streamline it. And
Mitch, what's a good email for people to connect?
Hello@mitch.earth. And then also, if you want to join the wait list for when that dashboard is set up, then the link is, I think Stefano has that link. I'll just put it in that private chat again right there. But if you are listening, then the link to get on the waiting list is just waitlist.landscope.earth. And then it's basically to get onto the waiting list, there's just a series of questions. And that, for me, is like I'm getting some intel on what people are actually after in terms of a service. Instead of trying to do the guesswork, be like, oh, like, what do people want, right? And so this is what I rely on other people to be like, hey, like, how can I serve you the best? And how can I make this the best experience for you possible? So if you are interested, then please do join the waitlist and go through that questionnaire, because it would really help me out in making this data and this program and this work more accessible to people who want to do good work and make the world a better place.
I love it. Thank you so much, Mitch, and really fascinating. I'm impressed with your work, obviously, on my farm. It's such valuable data. So thank you for sharing with the community. This recording is going to be available on the school. I'll put a link on the chat on my YouTube and the school community, so people can cycle it back, and how to do it, obviously, for free. And then obviously your program, once it becomes available, join the wait list. And if you need something right now, just email you directly for specific
easy peasy. Yeah, there's one question from Hardlight. What does Google Earth Pro cost? Google Earth Pro is free. That's why I designed it to be with Google Earth Pro. There's a lot of functionality in there too, so it's free. It's easy to use, and that's it. Man. Thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share the work that I've done with people who want to make the world a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you guys that are in the perma resilience community, you can reach out directly by inbox to Mitch. So just
message me.
And you're super active. In fact, that's how we communicate. I don't even have your cell phone.
Yeah,
so it works.
Yeah, awesome. And thanks everyone for showing up. And yeah, I'm here for you. So just send me a message, send me an email. Happy to chat.
Awesome. Thank you.
Beautiful.